Let me say this as clearly as possible. Faith is not an excuse to do nothing, and faith without strategy is just procrastination dressed up in church clothes. I said it. Get your favorite pencil, your favorite or favorite writing utensil, get your notebook, get your Bible, and your favorite healthy beverage. And we will be back right after this intro. Hey there, welcome saving and investing. And I'm 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 1 and 2, saying that financial is not a set forget. Hey there, welcome to the Radical Godly Stewardship podcast. This is the show where heaven's economy collides with Earth's assignments. I'm your host, Lexi Johnson, your financial rebel, kingdom disruptor, and your accountability coach to obedience. Around here, we don't beg God for money. We align, we obey, we produce, multiply, and dominate because stewardship isn't just about money. It's about mindsets. It's about missions and multiplying what's been placed in your hands. So if you're tired of playing small and praying broke and calling it faith, you're in the right place. So let's dive in, shall we? Our key scripture for today is coming from James chapter 2, verse 17. All right, so you should have your Bibles by now. James chapter 2, verse 17. I'm going to be reading from the New Living Translation as you are looking that up. I'm just want to welcome you to the broadcast once again. Do me a favor. If this is not your first time here, you've seen this broadcast a few times, share it out. You keep coming back because there's something about it that you like. So share that with others if you will, and or tag someone in the comments. Okay, you should be at James chapter 2, verse 17, and it says, so you see, faith by itself isn't enough. Unless it produces good deeds, it is dead and useless. Okay? Let's just pause right there, shall we? Dead and useless. So, you're not waiting on God. Nope, you're not waiting on God. Instead, what you're doing is you are avoiding responsibility and then calling it holy. Okay. Now, would somebody directly call avoiding responsibility holy? No, but I've mentioned this before, and avoiding responsibility and calling it holy sounds like, oh, I'm waiting on God. I'm just waiting for Him to give me my next steps when He's already actually given you your first step, right? And He's not going to give you the next step until you complete the first step. Okay. So, what we're getting ready to talk about in our first segment is this I'm believing God cop out. Okay, this I'm believing God cop out. But before we do, here's a word from one of our sponsors. All book clubs, it is time for a conversation that goes deeper than fiction. Stop Begging God for Money is the book your group didn't know it needed. Whether you're reading for growth, healing, or financial strategy, this kingdom-centered guide brings bold truth, step-by-step action, and spirit-led revelation. Discounts are available for bulk book club orders. Email support@mm4h.life to get your club started today. Let's turn your book club into a financial breakthrough circle. All right. So you heard. Hey, good afternoon, Minister Patrick. Good to see you. So, you heard it. If you don't have your copy of Stop Begging God for Money, please make sure you get your copy. All of the information is in the show notes. And you could, if you already have a book club, this would be great. If you would like to start a book club and read it along with some people, that would be great too. And so you can just email me at support@mm4h.life to order the books in bulk. Okay, so let's get talking, shall we? This I'm believing God cop out. Okay, so some of y'all are believing God for debt cancellation, right? Some of y'all are believing God for a business breakthrough. Some of y'all are believing God for a six-figure launch. And some of y'all are maybe believing God for this miracle house or miracle car or miracle $1 million or whatever it is that you say you are believing God for. But that's a cop out. Now, let me tell you what makes it a cop out, because is it wrong to believe God for debt cancellation, for business breakthrough, for the six-figure launch, for the miracle house, for the miracle car, for the, all the things, for the $1 million or whatever? Is it wrong to believe God for it? No. However, believing God for fill in the blank is not just a matter of just saying that, right? When you say you're believing God for debt cancellation or any of these other things, what's your strategy? What's your strategy? What have you built? Okay. What seeds have you sown? And when I'm asking about what seeds have you sown, I am not talking about um, offering. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay. I'm not talking about taking money and putting it and laying it before a prophet's feet. I am not talking about that. Okay. That's not what I'm talking about. And that's a rabbit trail I'm getting ready to go down, and I'm not going down that trail. But that's not what I'm talking about. Okay. If you say that you want to eliminate your debt, what strategy have you put in place to do that? Because it's not just going to fall out of the sky and happen. Now, let me tell you what can happen. Once you do take some action, which could be learning about the strategies that are out there, choosing a strategy, and beginning and implementing that strategy, right? Taking those actions, what can then happen is that God will say, okay, I see my child is actually serious about what she or he is talking about. And so let me now bless them with this, you know, I don't know, maybe somebody gives you some money to pay off some of the debt. Maybe there is a portion of debt that is canceled. Those things can definitely happen. And it's not wrong to believe for it to happen, but it is wrong for you to just believe for that and not prepare for it, or just, sit pretty like you don't play a part. Okay. That is not how it works. Okay. That's not how it works. We always have a part to play. We always have a role. There's always some faith action, okay, which to me is like a double entendre, because faith is not just faith is not a noun. It is an action word. It is a verb, okay? So when you say you are believing for XYZ, and I ask you, what's your strategy? What have you built? What seeds have you sown? Most of the time, you go silent. All right. Most of the time, you go silent. I want to say this very clearly. God is not obligated to bless a blueprint that you never created. He's not. How does one do that? How can he bless something that you have not created? Right? It's like the storehouses. When we look at Joseph in his story of the storehouses, and when I'm working with my clients, I use that analogy, and I actually call our different pots of money, I call them storehouses. And so I'm like, if you don't have a storehouse for your emergency funds, and an emergency happens, what do you think is going to take place? For the most part, what's going to happen is you're going to have to pull it out of something else, and then you are scrambling to try to catch up because it's set something else behind, which has then set something else behind. Why? Because you did not have a storehouse to begin with. Okay. So there has to be something there for him to bless it, because God, the Almighty Yah, is not obligated to bless a blueprint that you never created. Okay. Hi, listen, everyone. If you're tuned in, do me a favor and just, put a hey in the comments, a hand wave or something like that, so that I can acknowledge you, if you don't mind. I love to acknowledge those who are here and watching live. Okay. And even if you're watching the replay, say hello. I'll come back in the comments and say something. All right. So here's what we've done. What we have done is we have idolized inspiration and we have demonized implementation. Okay. And if I didn't say it, I think I did at the top of today's episode. This is entitled Faith Ain't an Action Plan. Okay. Faith ain't a financial plan. Let me put it that way. So what we have done is we have idolized inspiration. We all want to be inspired. We all want to, go to that conference, go to that training, go to that teaching, have the inspiring phone call a friend that can give us all the inspiring words, and we want to feel inspired. But many of us don't want to implement. We want to feel good, but we don't want to do the work. We don't want to implement. Okay. We scream faith, but we resist discipline, right? Because sometimes for many of us, it's just a matter of discipline. There are some people who actually have discretionary finances, discretionary cash, where they actually can, and be comfortable enough to do some of the things that they want to do. But because they have no discipline, right, they're struggling, right? And so now they're going to say, well, I'll just have faith for more. No, you already have enough. Where is your discipline, right? We attend vision board parties, right, for whatever area of our lives, including finances, but we have no vision for the execution, right? We cut out all the nice little stuff out of the magazine, and we put up the car we want, the house we want, the job we want, the amount of money we want, whatever. We're putting all these things on the vision board, but there is no execution plan. There's no execution plan. Okay. We pray for provision, but we are ignoring the instruction that is given to us so that we could have permission. So that we could have provision. Hey, Pastor Butler, good to see you. Yes, sir. We scream faith, but we resist discipline. All right. So, sis, bro, you don't need another prophetic word. Okay. Because some of you all go from prophetic word to prophetic word. Right? That's how you live in your life, going from prophetic word to prophetic word. But you don't need another prophetic word. What you need is a project plan. That's what you need. What you need is a financial plan. That is what you need. The prophet has said, this is what God has lined up for you. But that doesn't mean that it falls out of the sky. Okay? You have to prepare for that thing. Why would God, and you all know this is called the Radical Steward, Godly Stewardship podcast. Good Lord, can I talk today? This is called the Radical Godly Stewardship podcast. Emphasis on godly and stewardship. Radical, all the words. But stewardship, okay? You have to steward well what is already in your hands. Why would God give you more if you are careless with what you already have in your hands? Okay, so I'm going to say this again. He's not obligated to bless a blueprint that you've never created. He's not obligated to do that. Okay. So this I'm believing God for and then doing nothing behind it, that's a cop out. That's, words dressed up in churchy. Okay. Faith without action, right? Faith without works is dead. And I don't know about you all, but I've seen some things dead before. Okay. I've seen humans, I've seen animals, I've seen appliances, I've seen all kinds of things dead. And when they are dead, they are dead, right? Now I'm reaching for my oh, not this bag. I'm reaching for my cord because my silly self did not plug in before getting on here. So I'm going to talk and plug in. All right. And actually, it is actually time um, for a break. So why don't we do that? Why don't we do that? All book clubs, it is time for a conversation that goes deeper than fiction. Stop Begging God for Money is the book your group didn't know it needed. Whether you're reading for growth, healing, or financial strategy, this kingdom-centered guide brings bold truth, step-by-step action, and spirit-led revelation. Discounts are available for bulk book club orders. Email support@mm4h.life to get your club started today. Let's turn your book club into a financial breakthrough circle. All right. So, for those of you who are just tuning in, welcome to the Radical Godly Stewardship Podcast. Today, we're talking about faith ain't a financial plan. Okay. It ain't. Bad grammar and all. Okay. Hello, Jacob, watching all the way from Ghana. Thank you for tuning in and just, thank you for the work that you continue to do for the kingdom. Keep pressing, my brother. God sees you and hears you. And as you continue to do, he will continue to provide. You've been a wonderful steward over the work that he's given you. So let us continue now. I want to talk about a kingdom truth. Well, no. What I want to do is I want to talk about, I want to break down faith versus presumption. Okay, faith versus presumption. I think that this is important because oftentimes we will presume something and we will call it faith. Okay, so let's break down what the difference is so that you are clear. When you leave this broadcast today, you know whether you're walking in faith or whether you're walking in presumption. Okay, so faith says, God, I trust you and I'll obey what you told me to do. Okay, that's what faith says. I'm going to say it again. Faith says, God, I trust you and I will obey what you told me to do. Okay. Presumption says, God, you got it. I'll sit here and wait for you to move. Okay. If God did not instruct you to just sit down and do nothing, okay, then you're out of order. So God, that is presuming. God, you got it. Okay. I want $1 million. You got it though. I'm not going to do anything to get it. I'm just going to sit here in my nice comfy chair and I'm just going to wait for you to just shower it down upon me. Right. That is presumption. And that is not kingdom stewardship. What that is spiritual entitlement. So some of us are walking around here entitled. We like to talk about, the younger generations and the entitlement attitudes that they have, right? Or we like to talk about other people and how other people feel that they are entitled. But yet we are walking around doing the same thing to God. Okay. So I want to give you a biblical case study because after all, this is the Radical Godly Stewardship Podcast. And so the story of Noah, you can find it in Genesis. I'm trying to think of the chapter, but don't get me to lying. I was going to say 9, but I'm not sure. Anyway, God gave Noah a prophetic word. He did, right? He said it was going to rain. You need to build this ark so that you can gather the people in it so they can be protected from the rain, right? So he gave him this prophetic word. And so what did Noah do? Did he just sit and wait and say, okay, God, I guess you're going to make sure that we're all, saved. We're just going to go about our daily lives and just do whatever and not prepare? No, that's not what he did. He got wood. He made measurements. He built this ark. Even when people thought he was crazy, because remember, up until that point, they had never seen rain. What is rain? Okay. And so sometimes you're going to have people looking at you like, are you crazy? What are you doing? That's impossible. That you can't possibly think that that's going to happen for you. Or, sometimes they may say it maliciously, and sometimes it's the intent is not malicious, right? They love you. They're trying to protect you. They don't want to see you go out there, in the name of faith and get hurt, right? So, but in spite of all of that, Noah had people making fun of him because they'd never seen rain. So they were like, what is he talking about, right? Faith told him rain was coming. Stewardship made him prepare for it. I'm going to say this again. Faith told him the rain was coming. Stewardship made him prepare for it. Don't miss that, you guys. So many of you, God has spoken to you and said, hey, yes, this breakthrough is coming. Yes, your business is going to be successful. Yes, your ministry is going to, bloom. Yes, God has told you these things are going to happen. And what has happened is that you just sat with that. He told you that things were going to happen, but 99.99999% of the time, he also probably told you some actions to take. And you decided, well, he said it's going to happen, so I'm just going to sit down, right? And that's not what we're supposed to do. That's not how stewardship works. Stewardship is preparation, okay? Stewardship is producing, multiplying, dominating. So if Noah were like us, he'd be shouting in tongues about an open heaven while sitting under a tree doing nothing. And I know we all know people, if it hasn't even been ourselves at some point or another, where we've gone on and shouted about this or that, what God is going to do in my life and what God is going to do in your life and all of that. And we sat under a tree and did nothing. Okay, that's not how it works. Faith told Noah the rain was coming. Stewardship made him prepare for it. God had given him instructions. He had supplied the materials. And so he could have done nothing with the instructions and the materials, but stewardship made him prepare for it. Okay. All right. Now, I always desire to challenge you guys. And so that's what we're getting ready to do next. Getting ready to challenge you or give you some practical application. But just before we do, I want to remind you that the registration doors are open for Financial Rebellion. That is our 90-day financial coaching experience, okay, where we learn how to steward. And we're not just talking about theoretically. No, we're not talking about theoretically. This is me taking you step by step, right? So that you can fix what you got going on right now, get on a good path, and then continue on that path so that whatever God has promised you, you can realize his promises. See, he's already made the provision, right? But you now have to take the steps to get there. And this is one of the ways in which you can do that. You can do that in community with us in Financial Rebellion. Now, right now, you can join for half off. It's 50% off, okay, which is an amazing deal. until the first five slots are filled, or until June 15th. So you don't want to hesitate. You want to go to bit.ly/financial rebel 2025. That's bit.ly/financial rebel 2025. Okay. When you go to that site, you're going to get all the information, because I don't have time to, do all that today, but you'll get all the information about it. And if God is talking to you about getting yourself together financially or not. Okay. And this is a way that you can do that. All right. So let's talk about some practical application. You guys know I'm always about practical application. All right. So this week I'm going to challenge you to audit these faith statements that you make, these I'm believing God for statements that you make, and attach them to actual plans. All right. I'm going to give you some examples. All right. If you're believing God for clients, what is your lead generation plan? You can't have clients and you don't do any kind of lead generation. Where do you think they're coming from? You think they're just going to all mount up and just fall in? No, that's not how that works. Okay. There is some type of lead generation. Even the clients we think came out of nowhere don't come out of nowhere. They come by referral. They come by hearing you say something. They come by, whatever, however they stumble across you, but they don't come really out of nowhere. Okay. So that's an example of one. All right. Let me give you another example. If you're believing for a house, what's your credit strategy? If you need to get your credit together, what is your credit strategy? Nothing, right? How do you expect to get a house if you don't have a credit strategy? Maybe your credit is okay, but you don't have the down payment you need. What is your strategy for getting it? Right? Or maybe you need all of that. Maybe you need the down payment strategy, you need the credit strategy, whatever it is, right? If you're believing for a house, that's nice. Okay. Faith says I'm believing for a house, but stewardship says I'm putting strategies in place for the areas where I'm deficient so that I can get there. If you're praying for a raise, what skills are you developing so that you can, present yourself worthy of the raise? Now, we know you're worthy of the raise, right? But you've got to show people that they can put more dollars and coins into you. Listen, when you read Matthew 25, the parable of the talents, when the master left, and he left his servants with bags of talents, 1 5, 1 2, 1 1, according to their ability, right? The ones who got raises were the ones who multiplied what they were given. Those who were the ones who got more. Okay, those were the ones who got raises. So if you're praying for a raise, what skills are you developing? If you're waiting on a husband or a wife, how is your healing journey? Right? What are you doing to heal from the previous relationship? What are you doing to prepare for a wife, for a husband? You have to be a wife now before the husband comes. You have to be a husband now before the wife comes. What are you doing? Right? Faith without works is foolishness. So that is what I'm challenging you to do this week. Okay. I want to challenge your faith statement that I'm believing God for XYZ, or God told me that I would have XYZ. I'm challenging you to look at that statement, that faith statement, and then attach it to an actual plan, an actual strategy. Okay? Because faith without works is not only foolishness, it's dead. I mean, it ain't happening. Okay? It's not happening. All right. Okay. So if this episode got in your business, well, good. I am not apologizing. Okay? I am not apologizing. Okay? If this episode got in your business, good. Then I've done what I came to do. But it also means that you need to read my book. Okay. Stop begging God for money. Begging God for money isn't cute and it's not safe. Okay. This book is kingdom correction. It's raw, it's unfiltered, and it's really for people who are ready to do the work, because that's how the book is designed. It's going to help you do the work. This is not just let me read it through. No, this is all right, I read this chapter. Let me do what it says. All right, I read this chapter. Now let me move to this next thing and do it. Right. This book isn't for the churchy. Okay. It's for the called. All right. You ain't going to have this book just to say, oh, I got it because I'm a kingdom citizen. It's not for the churchy. It is for the called. All right. It's a #1 Amazon hot new release. It was bestseller in 7 categories. And it is my goal to get this book in as many kingdom citizens' hands as possible. So get your copy today. AuthorLexiJohnson.com. AuthorLexiJohnson.com. You can also get it on Amazon. Okay. But if you know, get it at AuthorLexiJohnson.com. And if the book steps on your toes too, good. Okay. Because God is trying. He is trying to grow you. All right. He is trying to grow you. All right. Well, here's how I want to wrap up. I want to say this. Let's stop confusing passivity with piety. Right? I'm waiting on God, and so I'm just going to sit here and do nothing and let God be God. Right? That's not always the case. He usually tells you, yes, he's doing XYZ, but there's also an instruction or a set of instructions for you. Let's stop calling laziness waiting on God, okay? Or fear waiting on God, okay? Faith is a seed. Action is the water. Strategy is the shovel, okay? If you want to harvest, you have got to get to work, okay? You do have heaven's backing. You have heaven's backing. But God is not going to do your part, okay? He's going to do his part. That's what he's going to do, and that's what he is responsible for. But he's not going to do your part. Everything that he says he will do, he has already done. You need to do your part, okay? So that's it for this episode of the Radical Godly Stewardship Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lexi Johnson, reminding you that you're not broke. You're probably just disobedient. You're not waiting. You are probably the one delaying. You're not stuck. You're probably just scared to move. Okay. But that ends today. We're going to let that end today. And until end, not end. We're going to let that end today. Okay. I felt like I didn't pronunciate. Until next time, steward well. Okay. Produce, multiply, dominate, and do it unapologetically. All right, we'll see you next week. God bless.